What's up, people? Welcome to a brand new edition of Wrestle Update. I'm your host, as always, Dylan Fox. We have a big week to talk about wrestling today. We've got week 2 of our Continental Classic for AEW. We've got NXT Deadline. We have other things, but unlike last week, it will not include a comprehensive recap of SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. In all likelihood, I know my co-host, Nelo de Angelis, has to appreciate that.
No, like I said, I want to hear it again. That was a blast. Maybe we can do like something about Fire Pro or
okay.
God, okay, what was it? Was it Virtual Pro Wrestling 2? Like the one where you actually have like Karakin and everything like that? So sick. Yeah, I have it on my PS2, amazing. But it's in Japanese, so it's hard for me to navigate.
But they have the theme music in that game, don't they?
Maybe
like the entrance songs for people.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah, I think that's the one where they have the actual, because they have everybody licensed in that game.
Yeah, they're not like bullshit names, but they look just like them or something like that.
Yeah, like the Fire Pro version where it's all fake people, but they mess it around.
What's your favorite Fire Pro name?
Oh, Fire
Mine
Pro.
Is Carts Rowdy.
Carts Rowdy?
That's like my favorite Fire Pro name that I've seen. I think he's in like that SVA or whatever, like the main fake promotion they have. But
SWA.
Carts Rowdy with a K.
Carts Rowdy is good. What about Zima, like ZYMA for Shima? Remember that? Yeah. I think that's good. A good one. There's a lot on there that's very good. What about Victory Musashi? Antonio Inoki. That's a good one. Yeah. See, in Fire Pro, if people don't know Fire Pro, like he said, they're all like amalgamations of people, but they're real people, but they changed the names for copyright purposes, which is very cheesy. I wonder if something new could get away with that now. I think it just kind of got grandfathered in with them. I feel like if that happened in America, for sure, that would be a problem. Like if somebody made a WWE game with all of it, with all of the regular guys, and they just changed the names around slightly, I think WWE would sue them over that.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I feel like that's kind of Wrestling Empire did that actually. Have you ever played that one? M. Dickey's game?
I've never played that. Oh, wait, no, I did play that. I did play M. Dickey's game. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I guess that wasn't a AAA release, though.
No, I wouldn't.
There's a phone game.
It's like a single A. Good old single A.
And I mean, we've had before, remember, even all the text games like Journey of Wrestling and stuff, none of that stuff is licensed. Or that doesn't work. TEW, it's the same deal. Well, they've created their own like TEW universe with that game, where it's like all original characters and stuff. But of course, people just edit in the real people and stuff like that. Same thing for Fire Pro. I mean, that's how it always goes, right? You end up editing everything. But interestingly, how did you feel about in Fire Pro World when they took that out? Like they didn't do that for World. They just let you download everything like right away.
I love that, honestly. I thought the way you had to do it, where it was like through the website, was pretty weird.
Yeah, true.
But like the weirdest way you have to get like downloaded characters is to do it through your PC. But I like Fire Pro, I think definitely has the most diverse character creation. So I was pretty happy about it because 3 hours after downloading it, it's like I have 200 new characters and I'm just like living the dream.
That's like a lot of times people say that's the best part of the whole game, is the creator and setting the AI to do what you want it to do. Like you could just watch these guys have a realistic match.
Yep.
Based on just the settings that you put in for guys on there. I think my claim to fame, I always bring this up when I was not nearly the creator level people as some people were. Like my friend Dean was like a legendary Fire Pro person. But I was the original person to put in, to create Mikoto Shindo and Mei Hoshizuki, Kohaku and Mei Seira. Now, I was the first person in Fire Pro World to upload creations of them back when they were still in Marvelous. That's how long ago this was. On there.
Damn. I just learned last week that Mei Hoshizuki is Mei Seira.
What?
Yeah.
You didn't know that?
No, I was making one of my mixtapes, and I was like, fuck, I want a really good Mei Hoshizuki match, because I was thinking of her one that she had with Utsumi when she still wrestled as Mei Hoshizuki.
Yeah.
And I pulled up her cage match, and I was like, who the fuck is Mei Seira? I was like, oh, doesn't she wrestle with Suzu or something like that? And then I was like, oh, okay. This is, okay, cool.
Yep, it's the same person.
Yep, really cool. So
just with a bigger paycheck now that she was making it Marvelous.
Yep.
But a lot of people like her. That's our high speed champion currently. The thing is, this era, I promise we will break off from this tangent soon. But this version of Japanese wrestling we're in right now is like the worst of all time, I think, because everyone has tag leagues going on at the same time, and I've watched all of them, and I think it's broken my brain a little bit, because Stardom had the Goddesses League, New Japan had their tag league, which was a complete disaster with injuries and everything else, and then All Japan had their tag league as well, and it's like, when will and that was like a comedy league practically in a lot of ways. So I don't know what to do with myself with Japanese wrestling anymore. Nello. At least right now. I mean, we're heading into January 4th, so it's going to bounce back, of course. But Mei Seira, her team name was called Star Fox, which I very much enjoyed. Yeah, it was her and Kohaku, like Mikoto Shindo. Like they brought her in, and she usually wrestles in Wave, but they brought her in to team with Mei again, pretty much. And they're like, we're Star Fox. So and they were one of the better teams, to be fair. So shout out Mei Seira on there. I wish that she was on one of these shows we were talking about. Would make me very happy. But instead, as I said, we had a lot going on this week. Fire Pro aside, I do like we're carving out a niche for ourselves for bringing up these wrestling games on our shows, because video games are so important to you, not just you. I mean, obviously for you it's very big because it's your whole career. But for me, it's very important to my life on there. So I have a lot of thoughts on all of these things right now.
You know what? One of my favorite things in a wrestling game recently, I just want to share it, because I would love to write for a wrestling game one day. Like, that's one of my dreams, is writing a career mode. And like, I actually appreciate the effort that the writers put into the WWE games. It's the male career in my rise 2K23. And the way you unlock Andre the Giant is that your character gets tweeted at by someone named Andrew the Giant. And they're like, you suck. And you're like, screw you, Andre. I'll beat your ass. I don't care how old you are. And then your social media person like reaches out and they're like, hey, just so you know, Andre the Giant passed away a very long time ago. That was just a random fan. Can you please not do that again? And you're basically like, you have the option of responding like, I don't care, I'll still fight him or whatever. And then that night you have a dream that you face Andre the Giant, and if you beat him, you unlock him in the game. And it's just like such an added layer of depth that you don't have to do for that type of unlock, right? And just like a way to, what I appreciate too is like a way that they diegetically insert it as well into the world, where it's like not totally weird and immersion breaking that you're just fighting Andre all of a sudden.
Like in Raw 2, like when they brought an Andre in on there. I mean, this is like a 20 years ago game. Here Comes the Pain's main competitor at the time. And in that one, Bischoff was just like, I had to do some crazy stuff, but I have an enforcer to fight you now. And here's and here's Andre the Giant. And it's like, wait a minute, he's been dead 15 years. But they didn't mention that in the game. But the 2K23 career mode is actually pretty entertaining. I was a fan of that. I actually have 2K24. I've yet to play the My Rise though for this year's version.
Yes, I have not either.
But I will. I want to. As I mentioned last week, I was kind of busy with Veilguard and all kinds of other stuff. But I will report back when I play it, because I do like stuff like that, and they were good for that with 2K23 on there. Like you said, the writers they've made a niche, because they left off with 2K20's career mode. I mean, that was just a complete disaster. That was one of the worst stories ever told in any form of media. And then they bounced back with this format that they've kind of just ran with the last few years on there. And I think they found a good pace from where they were at before with the voiced careers. Now with My Rise, I think they've done it a lot. They've streamlined it in a way that they can make successful.
Yes. No, and I like that they make two totally different careers. God, again, that AEW game, what a fucking letdown. Oh, we don't have to get into it.
Yeah, that was a very, very questionable career mode. Although I have a lot of thoughts on that. I have a lot of thoughts on the Fight Forever career mode for sure. On there, but I think my favorite part of that career mode was the one where it's like you can invite. Remember this because they basically just ran through storylines with no real connection to them. You do one thing for a month and then the next month it'll be something totally different that has nothing to do with what you did the prior month.
Yeah, you can have like 3 titles. You can have like 3 titles and you'll never actually defend them.
Yeah, and then you just move on to something totally random. Yep. So I think my favorite version of the storylines of Fight Forever was the one where you can invite somebody to go out to a diner with you. And that turns into a month-long deal. So, of course, I invited Hikaru Shida for mine in my career mode. And so we're going along. Everything's great. Like, we're kind of doing our thing and all of that. And then suddenly, like, House of Black is trying to, like, be the Fight Forever version of Karrion Kross, where they're trying to manipulate us apart. And then Shida's like, yeah, like, fuck you, pretty much. And then that turns into a whole thing. It's like all of this because of a diner date. And then they have like a cutscene where you're like in the hospital or something and you're like in a schmuck. And it's like, it's a totally dumb storyline that makes no sense in a wrestling context. But you could do it with anybody at least. I happen to pick Shida, but you're free to pick whoever you like the best.
Yeah, that game was fucking weird. I hated the mini games.
Yeah, that was a miss. The mini games were a miss. Yeah. I mean, I applaud them for doing something different. I think the thing that really killed them dead. Well, first of all, how they marketed it with all the DLCs was poor, like very, very, very bad planning. But I think if they could have changed one thing, the career mode would be near the top of the list. But I think the secondary thing is that the create a character was so bare bones compared to 2K, let alone Fire Pro, where you can do literally anything. But even in 2K, they have a really robust character. I could download the whole roster I could download May and picture perfect May Sarah on WWE 2K24. And in Fight Forever, you cannot even download the top stars. Like a Roman Reigns is like a Wish version, pretty much.
Yep.
So that's something they should have fixed for sure. Do you think they'll do another game, like a sequel of some sort?
I hope. So here's the thing: they own the engine, and I do like the like engine or whatever that they created.
Yeah.
I think the strongest part is the in-ring combat. I like the animations, I like the fluidity. It's a really it's like a fan of Def Jam 5 for New York and the Aki shit, right?
I love
it's a
that
really
game.
Nice combination of arcade and simulation. And it's I don't think you need to go straight simulation because you have 2K for that, right?
Right.
So you, like you said, you need to carve out your own thing. So I hope they take what they created here and work with a different team, and really focus on the writing of the game.
I think those are the two things I would change: the writing of the career mode and also the create a character. Even Def Jam, you could create a pretty cool character in there. But it's like, I agree with you that it's actually a fun game to play, but there's no depth to it on there. And I remember when it first came out, people were actually kind of optimistic about it because of the gameplay, that if they could build upon what they started, it could be something cool. But unfortunately, it's not. That they probably needed a Mortal Kombat level, because they just released on their game the Havoc DLC. Like they put a whole new story in just as a DLC, pretty much. Which I mean, I'm not a big fan of the direction they took in their story for sure with the multiverse stuff. Um, but I like the idea of it at least that you could actually get a whole extra game as DLC. I think that others could try to do that. But regardless, Fight Forever, 2K24, Fire Pro, even Here Comes the Pain, even Def Jam Fight for New York. Whatever game you want to play.
We love fighting.
Yes, we love violence, and we need more of it in our life, and we watch it every week in this strange version of it that we're watching. One thing I wanted to talk about before we get to the show start is there was an extremely well-regarded segment this week on Raw. And Raw, I have to say, I think ever since they've went down to 2 hours, and everybody who knows me knows I'm pretty much kept hostage to watch these shows. And I've been able to dodge SmackDown at least because of the day it's on. And I'm very thankful for that. But I have to say, since Raw went down to 2 hours, it's been a pretty decent show. Like, honestly, like I never hate Raw for the most part. And this week they came in with the New Day 10-year anniversary. So if you aren't aware, they've been teasing for literally months this storyline. This was not a Fight Forever storyline. This was something that lasted a long time to bring in here between Xavier Woods and Kofi. They've been arguing with each other. Woods has been messing up. And then it all culminated last week with another great segment, by the way, last week where Woods and Kofi had a backstage argument after losing to Akira Tozawa, of all people, in a tag match. And they had this very hyper gritty and realistic argument where they brought up everything. They basically laid everybody's complaints on the board. Like Kofi said, "You're not champion because you aren't good enough." Wood said, "You were the champion because of me," and then you pissed it away in 5 seconds to Brock Lesnar. And it looked like they were about to destroy each other. But they ended up saying, "See you next week." And then they came out this week in suits. Adam Pearce, the GM, he had all kinds of stuff. They had pictures of when Kofi won the title, when Big E won the title, when Woods won the King of the Ring. They had the robe on the stage. And Booty-O's made a return after all these years. And so he introduced them, 10-year anniversary. Woods cuts a melancholy type of promo where it's like, yeah, we're proud of everything we've done the last decade, and we could not have done it without the fans. And that's why we need you to know that what's about to happen isn't your fault. A very dramatic line, and it led to Big E coming out and making his return after all of these years. And he cuts this promo where he's all emotional and he's like, "I'm finally back and I wish I was here under better circumstances because I've seen you guys at each other's throats for the last couple of months and I hate it. It's made me hate my life." And he talks about how, 10 years ago, Kofi, you were about to retire because all of your passion had died. And he was like, "Me and Woods, we were about to get fired." I gotta be honest. I don't think Big E was on the chopping block even back then. I mean, I know his original run wasn't that great, the Dolph run, but I think they were gonna put more into him, for sure. But regardless, that's the story they told on the segment. And he was talking about, he's like, "Woods, when you won the King of the Ring, your dream came true. I was the one that was there. When I was down at the worst part of my life, you guys were there for me. I was wearing a neck brace and I held your daughter, Kofi. We love each other. So by God, I am going to make my return full time, because I have not been cleared. But until I do get cleared, I'm going to be here every single week and serve as your manager, and New Day will rock again." Everybody's going crazy. Like, the crowd loves it. Everybody's happy. And then Woods is like, now you want to come back? Where were you when we were fighting for all these months? And Big E was like, come on, man, I broke my neck. And then Kofi, he comes in and says, you broke your neck? So what? Uh, and they go on this whole rant about why it's, Big E let them all down. And he was all like, Stone Cold broke his neck, Kurt Angle broke his neck. They all came back. Woods was like, I tore my Achilles and I actually needed to have surgery, unlike you. And Big E is putting on a pretty great performance here, where he's in tears at what they're saying. Woods and Kofi are going totally heel here. The crowd are booing this heavy. And at the end of it, he's all like, Woods is saying, face it, Big E. Stop deluding yourself and lying to all these people. You're never coming back. Which almost assuredly guarantees that he will be cleared at some point in coming back. But he said, you will never be medically cleared. And if we need you, we'll call you. And Big E off the mic now. This is where I think it really got great. Because you can see Big E's all like, Woods? Kofi, even you? He's like, I'm not going to let you throw 10 years down the drain. I'm not going to do this. He's like, give me a hug. And then he walks over to Woods to hug him, and Kofi puts his hand on his chest. And that's like the saddest moment. And Woods actually turns his head. This was like really great acting too, in my opinion. Woods turns his head. He can't even look at E as E walks out. The crowd is hating this Big, and they start chanting Big E rocks. And then it ends much like the Mega Powers, with Kofi and Woods doing this really angry handshake to each other. And Woods is like, it's just me and you now forever, brother. And the crowd gives super heat to this. I thought this totally lived up to the hype as a segment. Everybody was awesome here. The twist of it was crazy because everybody, I think, had predicted that this could go one of two ways. Either Woods turns on Kofi, like they've been teasing for months, or Big E brings them together and New Day's back together. So they went with this secret third option of both Woods and Kofi turning on Big E. And they did it in a way where I think it's really hard. Because I think you could say they needed to go to such a place that's not really logical. Like, they did a good job of their points. Nobody could agree with what Kofi and Woods were saying about Big E and kind of gaslighting him and saying it's all his fault that he left. And there was a part, too, where Kofi was like, you've got a desk job. You've got a new girlfriend. You chose all that over us. But, nobody could agree with the heel's logic here, even though people could see why it hurt. And I think they needed to do that because if you had made it more realistic, you have the question of, why weren't you here like these last 3 months? Because that could kind of unintentionally heal Big E. But they did it in a way where it accomplished what they wanted perfectly. I love the acting from Woods at the end where he couldn't look at Big E. And I thought Big E's emotion kind of carried the segment from a quality standpoint. What did you think of the segment, Nello?
So, seeing the segment and then reading after as well, because I was curious about the Odyssey Jones angle and involvement in all this, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, knowing that they were originally going to replace Big E, essentially, that they were going to choose between or no pun intended, Big E. Yeah. And, I kind of wish they still did that because I think that whoever got that position would have gotten a really nice boost. And I think that they still need to build future talent. That said, this was still really, really well done. I like how you talked about it being like the secret third option because it was, quite the swerve. I'm interested to see what Big E does on weekly television now. Because he said, I'll be here to be your full-time manager. So is he going to be there full-time just to try and get them back on his side, or will he not be around? Like, this had me with more questions, at the end than I had going in. A lot of them surrounding Big E's status because, I miss him and I hope he's able to return. But it definitely seemed like he returned or not returned. He promised to return or did not. He did not remove the possibility of a return, right? So yeah, I don't know. I'm just really interested in what this looks like between the three of them. I think that the New Day definitely need a tag title run. Who are the current Raw tag champions?
Finn and JD.
Okay. That would be a really fun heel versus heel fight. I definitely don't think Finn and JD need the belts. And I think that with this new attitude and change that they need to win the tag titles to almost affirm that what they did was the right decision. And I think that would add a further ripple in Big E's own sort of struggle with, why was I the problem kind of deal.
I think the way you laid it out was good. I totally didn't even think about the Odyssey thing until after, like you said. And the way it was laid out to where they would choose one over Big E, I think that would have been a similarly great heel spot, but more realistic. As I said, I mean, this one, you can't say, oh, you broke your neck, so what? Nobody could buy that, and nobody could agree with that. I think there would be a logic to choosing somebody. Obviously, Odyssey Jones ran into all kinds of issues, and they had to let him go. He did some crazy stuff. I don't even remember what he did, but it was something bad. And they had to let him go, like, off the court, some allegation or something. I can't remember. But they got rid of him, justifiably so. And that kind of cut up this angle. The funny thing is, the start of that angle was Kofi bringing in Odyssey, and Woods was pissed about it because he was like, he's not Big E. So that would have been quite a swerve if they had done that. They continued on along that lines. But I like your idea, though. And to continue off of your point, that's my main issue with this whole story. Where can they go as a tag team? Because the tag team scene is so bad right now that, Finn and JD are barely a team. And they're the tag team champions. They just did a thing a couple of weeks ago where they defended the belts against the War Raiders. And they were like, we defended it. This is our second defense in 6 months. So the Raw belts have never meant less. And there was a lot of controversy about the SmackDown belts this week with DIY winning them over the Machine Guns, which rightfully nobody is happy about. But still, they don't take care of their tag team scene enough to where I would, especially after last week's amazing segment, I think there was just more upside in them as singles workers than as a tag team. And that's my big problem with this because of the nature of the show. If they were a tag team centric promotion or a tag team centric show, this could be great. I actually thought that maybe they could be the ones that took out Jay, because that's kind of how the show ended, a mystery angle with Jay Uso getting laid out. If they were interacting with main eventers and they were elevated, because I think this was a main event level segment with Big E. I think they're kind of above the tag titles at this point, but it's kind of the only goal that they can actually have to, as you said, justify that what they did was the right thing. And hopefully do something bigger with Big E in the future. Because I do agree that there's more questions than answers. I feel like when he said that about you'll never be cleared after this, that really made me think that he's going to come back, to be honest. And maybe it's just all of these years of wrestler brain that's infecting me, because he did have a very serious injury for sure. I'm not taking that away. But it's just whenever they say so-and-so will never happen, it's almost guaranteed to end up happening in the end. So I kind of felt like, okay, it's assured that there will be a moment where he comes back. If nothing else, maybe he could pick a new guy or a new team to kind of, elevate them, and kind of how you said of them picking a new guy, but this time it's Big E bringing in the new guys in and fighting for him, and you can get a moment where he hits the big ending on Woods or something, and that gets a huge pop, if nothing else. If that's like the worst case scenario that he can't come back, you can still do a lot of good with him at the end of the day. So yeah, it was a great angle, like very cool stuff. Interested to see where they go with it. I hope that they have a bigger plan for the tag scene. Is all I can say on that end, because they haven't done a good job recently. Um, there was another segment I just wanted to mention because of our talk last week about the Survivor Series, where CM Punk came out and he was talking about, he pointed to a sign that wasn't there, and he was like, "Hey, I thought a sign would be there." He was like, "My dream, my only goal is to get a WrestleMania main event. And this favor that I've gotten from Heyman will guarantee that." And then Seth was like, he came out and was like, "I hate you, Punk." They had a brawl. They were held back. Jay and Sammy came out, who were at the Big 12 championship game yesterday, by the way, presenting a belt to Arizona State of all teams. That's how fucked up the college football world is that Arizona State is now in the Big 12. But they were there and they came out. Seth talked shit on Jay and was like, "Oh, why don't you run back to Roman?" And Sammy was like, "Don't talk trash on Jay." And, Sammy was like, "You think I wanted a team with Punk? He's an asshole. Like, I wanted a team with you and you said no." And Seth was like, "You think you love these guys? What about our brotherhood? We were friends 15 years ago in Ring of Honor when we rode up and down these roads together and all of that." And Sammy's like, "Yeah, that did happen, but you're still acting like you're still acting like an asshole." And Seth was all like, "You betrayed me when you teamed with Punk, and I would never team with Roman because we fought so hard to take away from power." And Sammy was like, "Listen, if you got all these problems, let's settle it in the ring right now or tonight." And Seth was like, "Yeah, sure." So right before the main event happened, Jey Uso was found laid out, and Sammy was like, "What the hell happened?" And Pierce was like, "I don't know what happened. He's laid out. I don't know who did it." And Sammy was like, "I think I know who did it, and I want to beat his ass in the ring." He literally said that afterwards. And then they had a match where Sammy went, they had this brawl type of match. Sammy grabbed a chair, and Seth like begged off. He was like, "No, don't do it. I would never attack Jay. Like, did you ask Punk? He did it." And Sammy had the chair. It was really a terrible finish. He was like, "Oh, I never did ask Punk. Maybe it was him." And then Seth gave him a roll up to win. And he was like, "I love you, man, but you got to use your head a little better." And then Sammy was like, "Damn, I got fooled." And then Drew McIntyre came in and hit a Claymore on Sammy. So bad night for Sami Zayn. But a lot of people liked the opening segment. I didn't think that segment was nearly as good as the New Day one, to be honest. But it did set up that Punk and Seth are going to have something. Like, they're continuing that feud going forward. And I had thought that might be a WrestleMania angle. I've heard that Punk doesn't want that. He'd rather have a match with Cody or The Rock or something. He's trying to politic his way into the main event. And that's where this favor angle is going. But we'll see where they go with it, because you had mentioned that him and Roman they did set the seeds for that, if all else fails. And there's a ton of reports flying around that's basically, it all ends up saying that, like, look, if The Rock wants a match at WrestleMania, he'll get it, but otherwise they'll have to plan for something else until that comes about. Do you think The Rock is like sitting back and he already knows exactly what he wants to do, but he just wants to fuck over people and wait till the last second to drop it, kind of like last year?
I have no clue. I don't know if it's malicious. I mean, last year, like, okay, intent versus impact, right? Is
Yeah.
it malicious? Perhaps not. Is it totally shitty? Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But he did back off at the end last year and let Cody have his match.
Yeah, totally fair acknowledgement. Like, he recognized that and he went with the flow. And I think that obviously proved to be better.
Oh, and his heel run was way better than. Remember when he first came back and cut that promo on Jinder? That segment was
God.
awful.
We talked about that, yeah.
Yeah, it sucked. And then as the heel run, he was he was great. Like, he was talking shit on everybody, called Seth a walking clown emoji. Like, he was cutting these great promos week after week, beat Cody's ass in the rain. That was like a legendary go home segment. Uh, we wouldn't have got any of that if we had Babyface Rock on there. So like you said, he deserves credit for, like, I mean, he's The Rock. You know, he can make anything work probably, like, no matter what happens. But we'll see what he does. But I just kind of get the feeling that, like, he knows exactly what he wants to do, but he's not revealing his cards yet, mainly to amuse himself. I kind of feel like uh in between pissing in those bottles that he's known to do lately. But yeah, so at least they've set some things up. Saturday night's main event's coming up. I think that's this week. To be honest, this Saturday is Saturday night's main event. Yeah, the 14th.
Yep.
So
I will be, so this weekend actually, Friday night will be front row at GCW Phoenix.
yes.
And then Saturday night I will be second row for 7, the new deathmatch promotion, sister promotion or whatever of Circle 6.
Yeah.
King of the Deathmatch. So I don't.
And that came about last second too. Like, you didn't think you were gonna make that.
Nope.
Yeah.
The stars align though, and I am going to the promised land. King of the Deathmatch.
We'll figure out what we do next week, more or less. Like I said, we'll talk about it. But it's happening one way or the other. This Saturday night's main event. Gunther and Finn is the title match on Raw, and it's Cody and Kevin Owens on SmackDown. As well as, I think, the finals of the Women's U.S. tournament is coming in there. They started the Women's Intercontinental tournament as well. Dakota Kai got a win. They're giving her a big push right now. We'll see who wins. I mean, they haven't really pushed anybody in the tournament outside of Raquel as kind of like Liv's right-hand girl, I guess. So we'll see. It would be kind of cool if Kyrie won, but we'll see how it goes. But we did have a big show this week that we both watched, and I was shocked. This was a last-second addition to Wrestle Update, people. I was updated on the Wrestle Update this week because, Nello, you came through in the clutch huge again. As we talked about, I have been compared to Stanley Kubrick of wrestling, always wanting everything to be perfect. I think you came in like Spielberg. All blockbusters right now with you, Nello, and you came through when I needed you most, and you watched Deadline. So this show, I mean NXT, because we did watch the shows before at the start of the year, and Raw was pretty good. SmackDown was like so boring just because of all the Bloodline stuff, and NXT, I mean, a lot of their pre-tape segments are kind of like Disney Channel level, I like a lot of their acting guys. Speaking of, like, Spielberg would not work with anybody on this show as an actor, I don't think. Maybe Uwe Boll would. I think is the only one that would direct NXT at this point. But I think that they've tried to do some different things, and there are some talent. They brought in some great talent for the women for sure. People with big pedigrees, like a Javon Evans and Julia, Stephanie Vaquer, and all of that stuff. So they did that. I think still in general, because this was the one I could not escape, because I end up having to watch NXT all the time, and I just think the show is like, the wrestling can be good sometimes, but the backstage segments and the angles are so, like I said, Disney Channel coded, and not even top tier Disney Channel. Nello, this was not Wizards of Waverly Place. We kind of saw some of the segments on this show. This was not Lemonade Mouth, a classic movie, for the record, by the way. One of the greatest Disney movies. NXT could not compare to Lemonade Mouth.
Lemonade Mouth, shouts out.
Come on, that was an epic movie, Nello.
That's
I know you're not about to say anything.
That is a deep cut.
I love that movie. Listen, I was a huge fan of everybody in that movie. Okay, back in the day, back in my teenage Disney Channel watching years. Okay, that was my era. Wizards of Waverly Place. Demi Lovato was coming up back then. on maybe some illicit substances at the time, for Camp Rock. But Lemonade Mouth, you had Haley Kiyoko in there, a major talent. Bridget Mendler, major talent. She became like a Harvard graduate or something. I think. So she's basically going to take over the world. But that they had some bops on Lemonade Mouth, man. Determinate, it still holds up to this day. Go listen to it. This is my recommendation, people, on here, and much better than the NXT segments, as we will get to. So this whole show and the whole week's build up to this was all about the Iron Survivor Challenge. Uh, Everybody had to qualify, and they did this whole angle where Eddie Thorpe, again, a sub Disney Channel acting segment, what I'm about to talk about. There was a part where basically for weeks he complained to Ava, who's the GM, and he was all like, "I'm not getting opportunities. Why don't you listen to me?" And Ava's all like, "Yeah, I hear you, Eddie. I'll talk to you next week. Just leave me alone." And they finally gave him a match, and he qualified with the last chance match. And then there was a part where he was like, "Please don't leave me, Ava. I gotta talk to you." And Ava walked into it through a door to another room, and like she leaned her head out, and somebody backed against Eddie, and he like closed the door into Ava's face and knocked her to the ground. And everyone was like, "Oh my god!" And then Shawn Michaels came out all pissed and like threw him up against the wall. And was like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" And all of this. And then the last episode was he also a very popular angle, this mysterious beatdown in wrestling right now, where somebody is laid out and we don't know who did it. Eddie Thorpe also got laid out, and nobody knows who attacked him. So Ava picked somebody new to come in, and he would get the last spot in the Iron Survivor match. So it started off with the men's match, and basically it's a 25-minute match. If you pin somebody, you get a point, and or submit somebody, you get a point. But if you take a fall, you have to go to the penalty box for 90 seconds, much like the King of the Mountain match in TNA in the old days. So then at the end of 25 minutes, whoever gets the most points wins. And it started off with Wesley and Javon Evans. Wesley cut his hair. He's got a new heel character now. Javon Evans, he's a guy that has a ton of potential. If you're familiar with his work in Deadlock Pro as Jay Malachite, he had he was like their champion and was the top guy. And so he's doing a lot of crazy stuff here. Wesley's doing his stuff, it's funny because he's known as kind of like this indie guy, like Wesley, but he was kind of the one to kind of keep it more grounded under his heel character. Pretty decent start overall. He got a big like a last second pin before it led to Nathan Frazier coming out, and his storyline is that he was going to work twice to defend the tag titles on the show as well. More on that later. He came in and they did their thing. In the end, the people were coming bouncing back and forth with pinfalls, going into the penalty box and all of that stuff. There was a part too where Frazier did his because his gimmick's kind of like, hey, he's like the new Masato Yoshino. He's super fast. Like he runs the ropes at a speed nobody's ever seen before. Blah blah blah. But every time he does this suicide dive, his legs get caught in the ropes, and it prevents him from being as awesome as it could be, because he kind of came up short again here on the suicide dive. Ethan Page came in number 4, and Frazier got a quick roll up on him, sent him to the box right away. And he was like, "I ain't going into the box." And then everybody jumped him and threw him into the box, pretty much. They wrestled for 90 seconds. Frazier hit his Phoenix Splash, but then Page got out of the box to steal the pin, pretty much, to get revenge. They go back and forth, and then Obafemi comes out as the mystery man, and he wrecks shop. He's beating the hell out of everybody, doing his cool power shit, throwing people around. They handled him really well in this match, I think, as kind of the monster guy. Finally, Evans got his first pin on Wesley with his big Os cutter off the top rope. Um, and it came down to basically everybody was fighting. It came down to Page had a pin and Evans had an extra pin. So they had two and everyone else had one. And in the end, Femi ended up hitting a double choke slam on Frazier and I think Wes, and he pins them both to get two more points at the same time. Evans ended up hitting his top rope cutter, and he was about to go for the pin, but the time ran out at 25 minutes. So I think this match is really fun. It's a super chaotic match. It's kind of a mess, but it always leads to interesting things happening. I think their finishes, I thought last year was way over dramatic with Trick getting like 4 falls in the last minute. I thought this was a lot better done version of that where Femi got to 2 pins at the same time. What'd you think of the match here? I thought it was well done and fun to watch. I wouldn't say it was like great or anything, but I thought it was a well done match.
Yeah, between the two Iron Survivor matches, this one felt more gimmicky.
Yeah,
I think
I
Ethan
agree.
Page brings definitely like a level of cartoonishness to wherever he is.
I
Um,
agree.
Not really my type of heel. Um, but yeah, I thought Obafemi was presented very well when he came out as the surprise guy. I was like, he should win. And the field that they chose made a lot more sense. It's, people he can throw around and people who, when he beats up like Page, people will just absolutely love. Um, that said, I do like these types of matches. We just watched War Games last weekend, and this is very similar in terms of opening and closing with a men's and women's version of the same exact match. But
Yeah.
this match is so much more digestible, and I didn't really feel fatigue watching both of them. That said, I thought that the use of the finish was better utilized in the women's version, so I would have liked to have seen them do something different here. Which is to say, Javon Evans and Stephanie Vaquer both like getting those last second, oh, if you pinned them, you would win, right?
Yeah.
Um, but Obafemi, the double choke slam was really cool. I think the 2 points at once is a lot more uh, immersive, but than the Trick Williams getting 4 points in a minute, right? I'm very excited to see what happens with Obafemi. To me, he's the guy that should become the champion. Whether Trick stays in NXT or goes to the main roster, that remains to be seen. But I think that Oba is definitely, no one has quite the aura or kayfabe like stock and
Yeah.
strength that he does.
It's a very logical build. I have to give them credit. Again, I'm not really a fan of their show in general, but with Femi, they've successfully built him as the next man up, which is exactly what they did with Trick last year, where it was like, okay, Carmelo's gonna leave, and then Trick's gonna take his spot. And Ilya, like Carmelo and Ilya are gonna leave, and then Trick's gonna take his spot. Now Trick is probably gonna leave, and now Femi's right here to take his spot, and you won't miss a beat in that. Um, I think of these guys, I agree with you totally about Ethan Page. I really don't understand what he's doing here, to be honest. Um, because like you said, he's just like Weasley, like very goofy heel. I mean, you can tell it's like his Twitter account's like Ethan Page played by Julian, right? So that tells you that this guy's not really taking it that serious anymore. Um, and not that he was always kind of a goofy guy. At least with the tag team with Alexander, you know, that really was able to ground him a little bit. I think as a singles guy, he really doesn't add anything, to be honest. I would have rather somebody else been in his spot. His whole purpose was that one segment where him and Oba were in the box at the same time. you know, that was like his only big spot of the match. He doesn't bring anything as an in-ring guy. I mean, he's fine. Like he's of that Robert Roode level worker, very basic. He can execute everything fine, but there's nothing exciting about him. The other three, I think, are all really talented, to be honest. I think clearly they see the most in Evans. That's going to be somebody that will eventually be the top of the brand. The other two, I wonder what their future is. Like, with Frazier and Lee. I think Frazier, I mean, he's still pretty young. He's 26. People forget when he came up, he was a guy that was like the hottest free agent. AEW tried to get him hard, and he just chose NXT.
Yep.
He was a guy that was a big name coming up, and he just kind of got signed really early. And he's a talented guy. Wes is not old; he's 30 years old. He's a guy that's been around for a while, though. Desmond Xavier has been around for years at this point. They kind of went through the Rascals breakup on NXT. I think he's doing, like I said, he's a good worker. I just don't know where these guys could go on the main roster. I just wonder what their future is.
Yeah, I see a lot more value in Wesley, honestly, as part of like MSK, because they are like a young, fun act, like the Stoners, whatever. Like they really are like a RVD style thing. That said, I think there's a lot more value as well in Fraxium going up together. Like they are a great tag team, and I don't think you need to split them up. And because they're all very early in their WWE careers as well still. And as we've seen people spend 10, 15, 20 years with this company, you're going to go through a lot of different things. But I think that when you go up to the main roster, you need to go up in your strongest possible form at this time, right? Like, I don't think a Carmelo Hayes went up in his strongest possible way. And he's just had a 7-match series with Andrade that I feel like is barely been talked about, right? So, and then you look at someone like Solo, who was booked so different in NXT and then brought up in a completely different way, right? But yeah.
And that's the thing with even Carmelo. He's a good worker who doesn't really have that next level aura to him. Like Trick has that. Like I think Trick's going to get chances on the main roster. When you see some of these other guys, I think they're going to be in a tough spot, overall. And I'll talk about Fraxium later, but I totally agree. I think Axiom is one of the best workers on any company. Like, I think if he's in this gimmick where he's doing the tag stuff, but if he was on his own, they had like that 1 week call up for him on SmackDown where he faced Dragon Lee in a match, and it was a phenomenal match, like last year. I think he could be like a great worker. I don't know if they'll use him as a star though, but still, I like all these guys as workers. Evans is the one I think has the most upside to them. We'll see if Frazier or West can break out. And Femi is the one, like I said, it feels like this is his time. He's going to be the next guy on this show. He's great as a power guy. Definitely carries himself like a big star, has great aura to him. They've done a great job bringing him along in a good way overall. So yeah, this match accomplished things. As a match, it was fun to watch. I wouldn't say great, but I do think it accomplished what they needed to, pretty much. So then they do this segment where Lexus King is out in the streets of Minnesota, and he's all like, all I wanted was for people to realize I'm not like him. Obviously talking about his dad. All I do is try to change myself, but I'm having a hard time. And he's like, this is where my life changed forever. I have no warm memories. I'm not even on the card, but I'm here anyway, walking out in the snow because I feel the warm air of satisfaction. Talk about not a lot of aura. I would say here.
It's so funny how he talks all this shit, but while looking like that. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, totally a tribute act to his dad and the look. But yes. So then they do a recap of Jada Parker and Lola Vice. Um, they've been feuding for all these weeks. They did this ECW NXT show um, in the warehouse or wherever, and they did these hardcore matches. Jada ended up winning their match by smashing a brick over Lola's head.
sick.
Ridiculous, a ridiculous brick that exploded upon impact. But still, a fun match, by the way. But still, silly finish. So it all led to this, where we now have to fight in Lola Vice's territory, NXT Underground. So they come out. They start off with having these just random people come out in all black shirts, and they surround the ring. The ropes are taken down, and they start beating on the mat on the side. That's their whole job. Now, how would you feel about this, Nello? If you were cast as like an extra, um, even if you were an indie worker, how would you feel about like your one role is to stand at ringside and smack the ring repeatedly?
I would watch tape of Alex Abrahantes,
The,
and
one of the greatest.
I would study, how to hit the mat, how to hype up the crowd. There is tape to study for this role, Dylan. I would be the best damn mat smasher ever. I'd get the job.
I believe you, and I would hire you if it was up to me.
Thank you.
But instead, we had these folks come in with the black T-shirt crew here. Um, so they come out. Lola comes out in her like MMA jacket thing. Her hair's done up, and she is a legit fighter. She did fight in MMA as well. I did like how the build-up to all this was like in the video. They were like, Jada was all like, "Yeah, I I played soccer at LSU. I almost made the national team, but I'm not a soccer player who became a WWE superstar. I'm a WWE superstar who happened to play soccer." And then Lola's segment was like, "Yeah, I shake my ass, but I can kick yours too. And I'm gonna do it while looking hot doing it." And I was like, "What a like these gimmicks are weird, man, on here." And so Jada talks her shit. She's from the streets and all this. And Lola's talking her shit. She's an MMA fighter. She shakes her ass. Blah blah blah. So they come out, no ropes. Jada comes in and they're like, she's wearing her same gear as always, and the commentary's like, "Oh, book, it's a totally different look for Jada here. She has her wrist tape. We never seen this before." And Booker T's like, "Oh yeah." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? She's the same. She just has wrist tape on. That's the only difference. Or her hands are taped." So the rules of this match are no ropes. You've got the T-shirt crew around the ring. You can only win by knockout, TKO, or submission. I want to know, because you told me you watched UFC. How did this compare to the UFC card?
Not great. Honestly, okay, shouts out Pantoja, man. That dude fucking tapped out or just literally put out Kai Asakura from Ryzen. Like just
I was shocked
not
by that.
given the
when I saw
love that he deserves. Shout out Shavkat. Like it was a pretty good pay-per-view overall, I will say. So yeah, that's my quick UFC 310 report. But no, this did not compare well. Also wondering why Lola Vice of all people has not shown up on a blood sports show.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I could think of here. And then Josh Barnett being like, "You could take the fucking ropes off, but you can't fucking be blood sport." And I'm like, it's weird to shoot on WWE when they're giving you people to do it. But I thought they definitely tried here. They like this was better than a bad blood sport match. I would put this somewhere in the middle where It had like some like Jada Parker played more of like a Jody Threat role here, right? Um, I thought by just being kind of like the bringing like a completely different style into the no rope ring.
Yeah.
Um, Lola Vice's like hits at the end, they just felt so weak. Really took me
Yeah.
out. And again, like, you know, I feel like you just got to commit to like a level of violence with these matches to make them believable. And that definitely requires a lot on the competitors.
Lola has the same problem as a lot of shooters, like legit martial artists have when they go into wrestling. Um, because they're so good at striking it for real, that makes them extra hesitant to want to go all out, you know? So you would think a shooter would be like the hardest hitting people, but a lot of times that doesn't happen. You
This
know,
is why
somebody,
we need Katsuhiko Nakajima in NXT. Just throw him in the performance center and do the Inoki slap thing. Remember when everyone got slapped
yes.
by Inoki? Do that with Nakajima and just do that for like a week daily. And people will come into these NXT rings with a new fire, you know?
And he was not a UFC fighter though, or any kind of. I think
Exactly. No, because
yeah,
that's what I'm saying
yeah.
is he didn't come from a different sport, so he has absolutely no care for how hard he strikes.
Yes,
You
he definitely does not.
that's what I was saying is that these
Yeah.
people need to learn from someone with absolutely no care for how hard they hit. They just got to learn how to hit hard.
Yeah, but I just thought if you're gonna, to me, the problem with this match, they, if you're going to do this, but like you said with the workers, but also in the match layout, I think you have to commit to it 100%. And whenever they do these kind of matches, it always turns into goofy stuff. You know, like they 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 ended up getting knocked out of the ring onto some of the guys on the ringside at ringside. They ended up bringing the brick back into it. They went back and forth with a lot of that stuff. I wish they would just do a legit match, like like a blood sport type of match here. Totally buy into it. Commit to what this gimmick is and work to it. They never work to the gimmick in these WWE matches because I think it's something that could have value, but not with how they do it. And I really wasn't that impressed with this. I like both of these two as talents, by the way. I think they both have upside on the main roster for sure going forward. Um, they, very charismatic, both of them. I think Jada's a little better talking than Vice at the moment. But Vice is super charismatic, like physically. They both have great looks. They wrestle pretty good, and it's really impressive because they are relatively new. I do agree with you on Vice's strikes being very weak. Um, do you think either of these two could beat, like maybe, like uh, Zhang Weili?
Fuck no.
Yes, my favorite UFC fighter on there. But yeah, I just don't think they work to the gimmick at the end of the day. And I mean the finish, it came with her. It was a pretty nice like rolling choke that Vice locked in and choked her out. And then she did her little dance at the end and flexed on there.
Doesn't
I
Anna Jay say the same thing though with like I can shake my ass and kick yours? Or does she say I have a fat ass and I'll kick your ass?
There's a lot of talk about asses on this show right now, and I'm not judging anybody, but it just seems
A
like
very butt
there's a lot.
forward show.
Yeah, yeah. Butt Ford. That is what we represent more than anything else. My God. But yes, very similar gimmicks. Yes, for Lola and Anna Jay as well. I think Lola has more upside than Anna Jay, even though I didn't like this match that much. I also think they should have. This was a long match, man. Like this took forever. Like they could have got to this point with 5 minutes less at least.
If you
Uh,
compare it to Bloodsport, this is the same length as Alexander and Mike Bailey, pretty much,
and
which is
that match had a lot more to it than this
which
one.
is the second longest match on the Bloodsport show. So yeah, I think a lot of the time shorter is better in these types of matches unless you're like Volkan or Akira Maeda or Kiyoshi
Yeah.
Tamura. Like, just just get in there and get out, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Going in there. So we'll see where they go here. I do like too for Lola that they've kind of made this her match. Like, like when her feuds get too much, like it's time to go into this zone. Uh so that's good.
I
Uh
would prefer personally, sorry to
yeah.
interrupt, but if they brought back Fight Pit. I think Fight Pit is so much
Yeah.
more interesting than Underground, but I guess Fight Pit requires a lot of weird setup as well.
And that's another one where they didn't really work to the gimmick when Riddle did his and Seth. Um I like that idea if they work to the gimmick. Again,
Yeah.
Um, to me, if you're just going to do a regular match, then there's no point in any of this, ultimately. But if they work to the gimmick, I could be with that, be down with that. Another thing, Lola Vice's entrance music has to be one of the best in WWE. I love that they gave her like a Spanish like song, like, and it's really good too. Like I said, Taylor Rompo or something. It's really good. Um, so they come in there. Like I said, I didn't love the match, but I do like them as prospects. They go back to Axiom. He's talking to Nathan Frazier. Frazier comically comes in. He's got his wrist tape. He's got the things up his nose with the bloody nose and everything. He's looking like he got the hell beat out of him pretty much. And he's like, man, Obafemi, they didn't tell me about this guy. And Axiom's all like, look, man, don't worry about it. I'll do the heavy lifting. Just hang back. I've got this. And Frazier's like, thanks, amigo. And their whole story, they show in the video, this whole team has basically been feuding with each other the entirety of their run, while also having the best matches in the company as a tag team. They can never get along. The build-up was Frazier qualifying and Axiom not qualifying. Um, and then Frazier doing this double match on this show. Their opponents are No Quarter Catch Crew, Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights. They mention Heights' run in Japan over the summer. He was in the N1 in Pro Wrestling Noah. And Inamura is now in NXT as well.
Has he been on TV yet?
Yeah, they gave him a shine spot. Well, he's been in multiple backstage segments where he's like. So far, there was a part where, because they've been doing the feud for the tag titles, and we saw a little bit of this in the match when the OTM came out, where every tag team is just brawls with each other every week. Like, there's 8 teams fighting all the time on NXT the last 3 weeks. And when Inamura showed up, he was like, Briggs was like, this is going to be a little different than Japan, man. And Inamura was like, whoa, like, look at this. And then it cut over to like 8 teams fighting in the catering or whatever. And he was like, this is crazy. My kind of crazy. Then they gave him a spot because they did a tag team battle royal, and this is how Bourne and Heights got the spot. And they were in it. And they gave Inamura a spotlight in that match, actually, to where he got to eliminate some people and do some cool stuff on there. So yeah, he has done stuff. It's nothing major, no like actual singles or tag match yet, but he has a battle royal and he has some backstage segments to his name and a new haircut. But yeah, so Bourne and Heights, they're in here. What'd you think of this match?
I loved it. I'm a big Tavion Heights guy.
Oh, he was awesome in this match. Yeah.
So many great power spots, so many suplexes. Like, I have no clue what this guy's like on the mic, but he's one of those dudes that feels like he has it to me. At least in ring from like what you typically see in NXT. Like, holy shit. Was he one of those NIL signees?
Yeah, he's a former Olympian.
Okay. Yeah. So like he just made such a great transition into it. Really feels like Noah helped him a lot as well, which I love to see. I thought Miles Bourne held his own here. He looked a lot more impressive here than he did in Bloodsport. I thought he stood out a lot more.
Yeah.
So many crazy near falls. Like, and this is one of those matches where everyone needs to be on time, hitting their spots to really maintain that flow. Because I think, as we'll see, we'll talk about it in Okada and Fletcher later, but
Yeah.
it's like with these matches, you go off tick once and it's just like the whole thing comes to an halt, and they only were able to elevate and sustain the energy throughout. This was my favorite match on the show.
Yeah, this was good. I think Heights is just awesome in the ring. He has such a very cool, unique style. Like that float over, like he rolled over, turned it into a power bomb, which he then turned into a power slam, and it was like, whoa, I've never even seen that move before. Like he was doing stuff that was like very unique, but totally fit his character. And he got over. Him and Briggs both were in Japan for N1, and Heights was the better of the two. Like pretty much everyone agrees that he got more over with the crowd as a babyface. I mean, Briggs was like, "Hey, I'm big," like that was his gimmick. And he's like, "I threaten, I'm a heel, big guy." Although he did threaten, like there was a part where he brawled into the crowd, and he like, so there was like this family or whatever, and he was like, "What are you gonna do?" And he pointed like this 3-year-old kid, which was kind of humorous on there. And but Heights, man, he got super over. The Olympics he was at was the one in Tokyo, and so the fans rallied behind him, and I totally agree that it helped him out a lot to go there, because he's in here, he's flashy. I think his look is very good, very unique. He's got like the kind of Steiner Brothers half and half style of singlet. Power moves were on point, and two great opponents in Frazier and Axiom. I thought Axiom was phenomenal in this match. He's another one, like such a unique style where he does do the high flying stuff, but he's such a great technical guy as well. Like if you look at his basics, they're so strong. His footwork is among the best in the company. I would say even in AEW, I think he would be among the best. In terms of how grounded he is and how he can set up the ring, how he wants it to. He had really slick and smooth transitions. His selling was great, and I thought he did a great job. Frazier, now he's a spectacular guy for sure. My one critique of this match, he's supposed to be. I don't think he really worked it to his gimmick either, because he's supposed to be this beat down guy, bloody mess, and ribs taped and all of that. But when it came time, and they were even talking about it on commentary, there was a spot where he was like, that commentary was like, well, you know, yeah, he's the man who never slows down, but I don't know how fast he'll be this match. And then immediately Frazier does his like speed, like Yoshino spot where he runs back and forth on the ropes. And it's like, okay, you didn't even sell it. He did the springboard 450, the Phoenix splash. All he really didn't sell any of this supposed injuries that he had. It was very much a Seth Rollins performance, which no surprise, guess who his trainer was on there. Um, that's what it reminded me when Seth was doing those matches with Moxley, and they were making it like, ah, his leg, his leg is destroyed. He'll never be able to do anything now. And then, like the next thing you know, he's running up the ropes to hit the Falcon Arrow from the top rope. And I don't like that kind of stuff. It's too. I don't consider myself like this hard nosed guy when it comes to selling. Like you have to be perfect. But I do think you have to at least try to make it matter. And come on, man, like a springboard 450, like on this broken ribs or whatever, he could have done a lot better. I thought Axiom was the more complete worker of the two, but still, this was a fun match. Totally agree about the Catch Crew. Still hate that name, but I do think these guys are very good hands to have. I think Heights. The thing is, we saw it with Gable and the Creed brothers. It really feels like there's a limit that the company sees in these types of guys, but I do think they'll be around for a while. Like they're good guys to have on the roster. And I think if they gave Heights a chance, he's a very charismatic guy too. Like in the ring, he was really playing to the crowd a lot. I thought he showed out well. I think he has everything it takes to be a really good worker.
Agreed.
And I love Axiom. I think he's one of the more underrated guys.
by a lot of fans just because of the nature of where he's on and what he's doing. I don't think he gets talked about as one of the best workers, but I think he's a guy that if they just let him unleash for a couple of months, people would be looking at him like one of the top workers in either company. It's got an 8.14 rating on Cage Match, by the way. So a lot of people like this. And I did too. We all did. So after that, they cut to Javon Evans backstage. He's all like, "Yeah, I lost, but man, was that match dope or what?" And and he's high fiving all the T-shirt guys from the the underground match. And
It pops one of them in a headlock too. He's like, I can still go.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. And he kind of had like, I think this is more relevant to me specifically. He really had John Morant energy with this because that's the kind of thing John does in his interviews too, where he's like shouting out random people. Like one time he had an interview where a post game interview where he took his shoes off and threw them into the crowd at somebody who asked for him. And he's always hyped like that. And yeah. So he was doing that stuff, and then Wesley comes up and is like, "Man, what are you talking about, man?" And he's like, "You lost. Why are you so happy about it?" And Evans is all like, "Yeah, man. Like I don't want to be salty like you." And then Wesley's all like, "One day you'll be like me too." And then he pops him with a right hand, and they get held back. And he's like, "One day you'll know why I'm like this," which is kind of a silly thing to say, I would say. But I did like Evans here. He showed a lot of charisma here. And the punch was good, actually, from Wes. We'll see. And then that sets up a match between them, which should be very good as well. So they recap Trick and Ridge Holland here. Ridge ended up killing Chase U during all of this. He beat Andre Chase. And somehow that means that the school has to close down. This is one of those gimmicks that I never understood why they did it. You cannot do Chase U on the main roster. Like, it's impossible. Like, to have, like, if you, for NXT, it makes sense because you're at a university and you could put plants in there every week, and that's fine. But there's no upside to this gimmick ever. Like, it's impossible. So I don't know why they did all of this time. But somehow, Andre Chase, Harlem Bravado, was one of the main acts of NXT for a significant amount of time. No one could have predicted something like that to happen. But Ridge Holland, he beat him. The company's done, or the university's done, and he gets a title shot. And his gimmick is, he's like, "Yeah, I tried to be a good guy, but nobody believed me, so then I became a bad guy." He's like the Aziz Al-Shair gimmick of wrestling right now. After his suspension for the late hit on Trevor Lawrence, he went out there and he's like, "If you want me to be the villain, I'll be the villain." And I was like, "Oh," everyone's like, "Oh, well, I guess that apology wasn't that contrite after all." NFL fans know what I'm talking about. So he comes in there and Trick is like, he's like, "I have to be the champion because of Ridge. If you're the champion, you're going to kill everything we built on this black and silver brand." And so somehow Ridge is threatening the brand. I'm never a big fan of these kind of gimmicks. I think I'm definitely like jaded due to the AEW one where everyone's fighting for AEW. So right away, this took me out of their storyline. But the match itself, what did you think of this? Bouncing in with these two, Trick and Ridge here.
Not great. Not my style. I think Trick is a champion that needs to be in the ring with someone that is significantly better than himself. He is not able to general a match in the ring yet. And neither is Ridge. I thought that if you put all of the talent on this show in like a line of most talented to least talented, these two guys would be at the very end of that line standing next to each other. I think everyone else on this show had better showings, whether it be character. Like Trick has this inability to sell, and it's been years now. It's been a year since he's been in this massive because a year ago he won the Iron Survivor, and that's when his ascension really began. If not before then as well. And it's like we have just not seen any evolution in his style or his abilities. He reminds me a lot of like a Jade Cargill in terms of outside of the ring, superstar. When you put them in the ring, it kind of falls apart. And like they have a ceiling because of that. And you want to push them to the top. And I just don't think that you can, though, because it's going to hurt them more to do this because, look at the cage match rating on this one, right? 4.65, lowest rated match on the card. Like this did not need to go that long. I think that this didn't even really need to be on this card. This could have been a TV main event. I don't know what they see in Ridge. I know what they see in Trick because I see it too, but he needs to get better in ring, or they need to be smarter about the feuds they book him in. Because Ilya match, great. Carmelo feud, great. But after that, you start to get really diminishing returns. And I think it's because, Ethan Page isn't going to carry him to a great match. Neither is Ridge Holland, and he is someone that needs to get carried.
That's a great point. I think if you put him on a Raw, like he could totally work as this. I think the one thing that he does have in the ring that I will praise him for, I think he pulls off kind of like, it doesn't really work for his character, but I think he does kind of pull off like the underdog, fiery guy, like I'll fight from under. I think he has a little bit of that into him. But like you said, in terms of extended selling, that doesn't, he can't do that. Like he's all explosive. Just look at last year in the Iron Survivor. That last minute or so, you had that explosive last minute. And I think that's about where he's at. Like he could do that. And I think if he were in there with a guy like Ilya, like you said, that worked. I think if you put him on Raw against guys like that, put him and Gunther in there, I think Gunther could have a great match with him. And I think he, on the mic, unlike Jade, I think Trick is like very strong on the mic as well. So he could carry feuds, and his presence is like among the top. If you'd align people up based on star, charisma, and aura, he would be at the front of the line instead of the back. But what you said is
totally
true.
Agreed.
Yeah, so like what you said about the in-ring stuff is very true though. And this match did not do anything for me. At Ridge, I mean he's not terrible, but he doesn't bring anything special to the table, He's like a big guy who does some cool power spots, but that's about it. Like there's nothing special. Compare him to Heights in the tag match, and I thought like Heights like way outshowed him like in a similar style of gimmick in ring. Obviously his gimmick is more of a mean bastard type of guy or whatever.
I totally agree. And with Ridge Holland, it almost feels like the sunk cost fallacy, right? They've invested so much into this guy that they still push him, and I just think that you have not. Is there anything in Ridge Holland currently that makes you feel like he is ready for the main roster and he will stand out?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, they found a good spot for him with Sheamus and Dunn, like the third guy of the stable in brawling matches. He was good at that, but as a singles, no. No, as a singles to me, he's mid-card gatekeeper at best. Like not even on the main roster. Like I don't think he has a place right now, unless it was a part of a group or a tag team. Because I think you could probably he's not terrible, like I said, but I also don't think he brings anything special to the table. It's nothing personal against him, but I just main eventer going for the title, that felt like a recipe for nothing good, and I don't think it worked. I mean, you said it, the cage match rating. Not a lot of people saw a lot in this match, even though I think people like Trick because of the character and because of his star power. but in the ring, this just didn't work overall. So, it is what it is. You know, I did think that they did a good job when he hit him with the Redeemer, like that lift up DDT. That was a great near fall, and the crowd finally bought into that.
That was one thing I will say is that going into the match, and you just brought up a great point with that false finish because it also got me. But when Obafemi won, I almost thought, man, Ridge would make for a transitional champion so that you don't have to have Oba beat Trick yet.
Yeah, that could be a WrestleMania match.
Exactly.
Like a WrestleMania weekend match, yeah.
And I get that it's, New Year's Evil, it's CW, it's the first big event of the year. But I mean, Trick and Oba, I think, is the biggest match that you could currently make in NXT. And that's awesome that they're doing it. But I definitely created the narrative in my head where I was like, I could totally see Ridge win just to serve as a transitional champ and have Oba beat him in like 2 weeks or whatever.
Yeah. I think that would have worked. Totally.
Because you can have Ridge take off the title from Trick via, bullshit, but I don't think you can. I think you need a clean finish between an Oba and a Trick.
Yeah. Like you said, that's the best match they could do right now in NXT. That feels like the biggest match. A lot better than Ethan Page, I would say, and like Ridge Holland. I mean, they're not doing him any favors, like booking him against these people, to be honest. I do agree with that. Speaking of Ethan Page, after that, he's like, yeah, I won the title when I first got here, and then I lost it. Then I lost more matches, and then I lost again tonight. And I don't know what I'm going to do anymore with myself. And then he just walks away from the camera. Okay. Like, thanks for letting us know that. They do a backstage cameo with Tiffany Stratton come in. And they're like, hey, what are you doing here, Tiffany? And she's like, look, I got the money in the bank. I can do anything. Maybe I'll cash in on NXT Women's Champion. And she was like, I'll see you next week or whatever. Or no, I'll see you at New Year's Eve or whatever. So that's kind of like a tease that they're putting the NXT titles in play for her. Why would you do that in kayfabe? Go back down to NXT. That's how bad this Nia storyline's been booked. She's like, just get me away from all this on there. But finally, we go into the main event, which was the Women's Iron Survivor Challenge. Julia comes in at number 1. Gets a great pop. She's another one, like, carries herself well. Obviously, the mic work has a long way to go that they did in her and Roxanne's feud. Although it did bring us a cameo from Funaki on NXT, which was very fun. So she comes in at number 1. Ren Sinclair is in at number 2. So she's kind of like, to me, NXT's version of what Chelsea Green is. Like the goofball comedy character that is a heel technically, but the fans actually like her. Except she also does technical wrestling because she's in this no quarter catch crew as well. So they do this like technical start between Julia and Ren, and they come in there and they kind of do a slow paced opening 5 minutes. So Ruka comes in. That was a good booking like setup to do the ground based stuff, and then So Ruka comes in. She flies in, does a springboard drop kick, hits a big X Factor to Julia. Sinclair goes after Soul, locks in the cattle mutilation here, and does the twisting version too. Shout out to Zangief here, and also Charlie Dempsey here with this. They come in there. Julia counters that. It turns it into a double submission. And they do some submission work back and forth. And then finally Julia hits the Northern Lights bomb on Sinclair to get a pin. The first point of the match, about right before Zarya comes in. Zarya comes in. She's kind of like the Oba of this match. She wrecks house, destroys everybody. Ren finally comes out, and then she like immediately goes into the ring, and Soul hits the Soul Snatcher on her, so she goes right back into the box. Another like comedic type of spot here. here to Sinclair. The fans start to rally behind her though, like with all of this stuff, and they start to chant for her, which was interesting. So they come in. Suddenly, Ruka and Julia team up on Zarya. They hit this crazy double power bomb, like shield style bomb on the table. Look great. They come in there. Ruka ends up hitting like a springboard into a front flip into the buckshot lariat on both of them, which was there. Suddenly, Stephanie Vaquer comes out as the last person. She hits a springboard to get Sinclair again. Zarya finally comes back in. Her and Vaquer fight. Finally, Zarya hits the F5 on Julia to get a pin. They all fight each other. And finally, Vaquer still gets a roll up on Rin for a near fall with 3 minutes left, and she has to go to the box for 90 seconds. They go in there. Sinclair comes back in and gets finally a sunset flip on Soul. So everybody's tied at 1 with 30 seconds to go. Zarya hits a great looking double spear on Stephanie and Rin. And then Julia comes in with a huge knee strike to the face, pins Zarya. Stephanie tries to go for a roll up. Only gets 2. She tries to do one more, but then the clock runs out and Julia gets the win as the clock expires. What did you think of this match?
I thought this was the better match of the night. It's my second favorite match of the evening. Better Iron Survivor match of the night. I like that there was lower pin counts. It is a short time. It's a little bit more believable, less cartoonish, right? I was really surprised. I liked the use of Ren Sinclair in this match because she still came out looking strong. She never gave up, right? Even though she took quite a few pins. I like that they kind of exploited her role in this to become a pin eater. I was surprised that Julia took a pin as well as Zarya, but I like that they exchanged them. I think that will be a few down the line. I was surprised. So if I'm not mistaken, the only person in this match who comes out not pinned is Stephanie Vaquer.
That's correct.
So,
the only person in either Iron Survivor that did not get pinned.
Yep. So, because that was something I was really looking at as well was, okay, I could see this being a one kind of pinfall win match. But I thought that they were a lot more conscious of, the booking with that stuff in this one. And they were more particular with who was going to lose and when. I like this one. I thought it was great. I think that NXT's women's division has definitely gotten back to a place now where it used to be in terms of being regarded as one of the deepest women's divisions. And I think that they've definitely added a lot to it. I was, familiar with Julia and Stephanie Vaquer before they came to NXT, but not Zarya. And I thought she had a hell of a showing here tonight as well. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what they keep doing for the women's division. Do you think that I was literally just about to be like, you think they're going to introduce a mid-card title for the women? Just remembering that they already have. Yeah, it's just been kind of whatever since, Fatal Attraction won it?
Yeah, no love for Fatal Influence on there. Although that's a movie reference, by the way. Also, Vic Joseph also called him Fatal Attraction, even though they're Fatal Influence as well.
Vic, I get you.
What about Toxic Attraction?
Was that the Mandy Rose group?
Yeah, which JC was also in. She's also in this Fatal Influence one as well. What does that mean? What does Fatal Influence mean?
If you have to question, look, I can't sit here all day explaining the profound depth of these NXT faction names, such as No Quarter Catch Crew, yes, or these tongue twisters of just, brilliance. Really, I have no fucking clue what it means.
Yes, well, Fallon Henley does have the North American Women's title, so this match was great. This was my favorite match on the show. I thought everybody delivered in their role. I thought they were really smart about how they used everyone too. You had Soul do these impressive spots because she really is like that's what she's best at, to do her acrobatic stuff. They really smartly laid her out. I thought Ren, they did a great job and got her over to the crowd, both as a comedic character and also as a legit person. At various points of the match, she showed a lot of cool stuff there. Julia and Stephanie both came across as big stars. I love the moment where they had their little like face down in the middle of the ring, where everybody was down, like they looked at each other. They successfully pulled off their little run as the Dream Team into this feeling like a big deal. And I love Zarya. Like everything about her is awesome. Like great power spots, great look too, like very unique. She's just definitely a star player in the future. And Julia, I thought was a great winner. They told the story of Stephanie not getting pinned. They've got multiple avenues to go with all of these people, and like you said, they set it up now to where, and I think a lot of people have said before, when you look at NXT, they're a women's wrestling show that has men on it in a lot of ways. Other than most other shows, it's really a men's wrestling show with a women's division. They're more like a women's show with a men's division, which I think it felt like that after this show. Like, to be honest with you, this was in the main event, even over the title. They put a lot of stock and effort into Roxanne Perez as the champion. They put a lot of effort into Fatal Influence, although their name is stupid. They put a lot of into them as well. And there's multiple feuds going on with Gigi Dolan, Tatum Paxley, all of this. They always have that stuff. So they've done a great job with the women's division on NXT. And when you have people like Julia and Stephanie, who are two of the best wrestlers in the world, you can make it good. And Zarya looks like a great addition as well. I thought this match ruled. And definitely a great main event to the show, in my opinion. It's got an 8.61 rating on Cage Match, the highest rated match on Cage Match, and for me as well. But I also like the tag match as well. I downgraded it a little bit because Frazier didn't sell his ribs enough on there. Overall, the show's got a 7.46 rating. I thought this was a lot better than the Survivor Series, to be honest. I totally agree with your point earlier about these kind of matches being similar to the War Games, but much more easy to digest. And they didn't really go too far into cinema or any of that bullcrap like we saw in those matches. And both matches had purpose to them. You had standout moments, good storytelling. The tag match was a great treat in the middle of the show. I didn't really see a lot in the title match or the underground match. But other than that, it was a pretty meat and potato show. No big angles or time wasting segments or anything like that. I thought this was a good show, to be honest.
Yeah, the middle, I think, because it was the same exact layout as War Games the week before. Your 2 gimmick matches bookending the show and 3 matches in between. I thought that the tag match was really great. It was pretty much your intercontinental triple threat, and I think having that in the literal middle slot really helped with the pacing. I think having another different gimmick style match with the underground also helped with just the variety. NXT title is where I definitely start to feel a little bit of the length of the show. And the women, though, brought it right back. So great work.
Yeah, good stuff there. I think Julia's going to get the title as well over Roxanne. I think that heel run, it's time for that to end. And we can move forward.
I think NXT will start with 2 new very dominant champions in the new year.
Yeah, and I think Trick and Roxanne are coming up to the main roster. They've done all they could do, really, on this brand. And that's how it should be. Like, this show should be about preparing the next people they have plans for the next year. And I think they've stumbled upon a good way of using it. I question what they're going to do with this transfer portal that they talked about on here, where they're going to have trades and stuff again. I wonder if does that mean no draft this year, or are they just going to trade people here with this transfer portal and have people go back and forth? Because, like I said, when I look at this show, there's a couple of people I think could make impacts on the main roster. But I think they'd be better off waiting until after WrestleMania to move them forward. And there's a lot of people where I'd be surprised if they have plans for them at the moment on their shows. But this is what this show should be about. Building up your Roxannes and Tricks to move up to the next step of their career. And I think they've successfully done that. But a good show, NXT Deadline, good stuff there. Let's go and flip it to the AEW side. We got some Continental Classics to talk about here. Yeah, so we're in week 2 of this now. Let me just say that the crowd for this show was a lot better than the week 1's.
Yes.
And I think that was something that stood out right away here overall for the whole show, but particularly the Continental Classic matches. I think that really helped out. Dynamite had 2 matches. First one was Kyle Fletcher and Shelton. This was, I thought, like a really old school type of match, actually, where you had Fletcher stall as a heel. You had him you had a Don Callis like commentary and stuff. You ended up getting the crowd really riled up against Kyle, but also the crowd was super into Shelton as a babyface, and they rallied behind him effectively. They built this match good. There was a great spot where Shelton was doing his German suplexes, which we saw in week 1 with Mark Briscoe, which I loved, and I loved it here too, the release Germans. And there was a part where the crowd was going crazy for it. They were like, do it again, one more time. And then he actually like pivoted and actually did do it one more time. I thought that was a great spot. In the end, though, Fletcher ended up stealing the pin with the help of the ropes with 15:48. One thing I will criticize, I wish that the commentary had made it a bigger point about the early going, because this was a slow match at the start by design, where Fletcher was stalling constantly the first 5 minutes or so. I wish the commentary team would have built up that, hey, Fletcher, man, Shelton's on a roll lately. The Hurt business has been going crazy. It's smarter. It's a business decision. You can even have Callis say that, for him to go for the draw here, try to force the time limit by stalling so much. They really didn't bring that up, even though that's clearly what he was doing, was just like the extended stalling segment at the start, which was not exciting to watch, but I thought played out very good and escalated the match well. What did you think?
Yeah, no, I am fucking loving this Shelton Benjamin run. I am so happy that he's in the C2. I think that he is like elevating the people that he is in the ring with, and the people that are in the ring with him are just like making him look fucking great. Like, I keep going back to the Leo Rush match in my head. Just phenomenal stuff. Just really beautiful use of suplexes here, like Lil King's Road action almost. I don't know. I really liked it. This was one of my favorite matches of the week. God, there was a few matches this week now that I'm thinking about it. But I'm absolutely loving this Shelton run. I'm still like, I'm almost losing stock on Fletcher now that they're shoving him down my throat so much. I'm almost starting to like kind of see the gaps and things like that. Not as into it as I was perhaps before. And like, one of the things that truly irks me about it is that this whole fucking competition is no outside interference, none of this stuff, but they're still going to have Kyle Fletcher resort to cheap heel tactics to actually win and cheat still. Like, what is the purpose of protecting these matches from non-finishes?
We saw that in multiple matches this week.
Yeah, and what's the purpose of that if we're still going to get bullshit finishes? Like, you're basically doing the same exact thing, except you're just removing the middleman.
That's one of the big flaws with this whole company, in my opinion. What is the problem? And it's a problem we've seen for years, man. Like, look at the Owen Hart tournaments over the years. Why does this company refuse to have people of note take clean losses? Like, what is the problem with that? Why is it so hard? You might get 1 or 2 of those. I mean, there are some, don't get me wrong, but why is it so hard? Like, why do we have to do this? Both matches on this Dynamite had BS finishes. It wasn't just this one, it was the main event too. Like, so I agree. I totally agree with that. Like, they should make, I don't know what they're doing. and I know this really set Meltzer off. I heard his rant about this, where he mentioned that this makes no sense booking wise because Fletcher was able to pin Ospreay clean, and there was no problem with that. But we need to protect Shelton, which is a good point. Like, what's that all about? And we talked about it after the show.
Amazing point. And that's the thing is, like, you had him go over Ospreay, and now he's like, cheap wins lose stock. Like, you're just doing the same exact shit that MJF does to win his matches. And, if you wanted to be your own thing, when the whole thing is, I'm going to become better than Will Ospreay, I'm going to become the next Kyle Fletcher. It's like, man, you're just becoming someone else now that isn't you still.
Yeah, I hate it, man. Like, I don't know what they're thinking with that. It's a shame because he felt like the next one up, kind of like we said about Trick in NXT. He felt like the next guy, and I mentioned it before that he's one of their chosen ones, clearly, that they are going to shove down our throats, and that has come to pass in this tournament. And again, it's nothing against him as a talent, because I think he's done a great job. I really enjoyed his heel performance here. I wish that, the booking would be a little bit more sensical in the ways that we and Meltzer also said about him pinning Ospreay clean. And then 1 week later, like, you need all this dirty crap on there. So it sucks. But the match was very good, at least. The other match on the show was the Gold League match. In the tournament was Claudio and Brody King, which they had set up last week, with Brody defending Darby when Claudio was about to take him out. What do you think of this match?
Good big man match. What I liked was that the story going into it was actually built off of last year's C2.
Yep.
So this is the first match we've gotten with, like, actual history from two competitors in the previous tournament. So it's like, it's cool to see history being made already, right? I like, in my head, I preferred last year's match. I thought that they still worked their asses off here. I definitely thought Claudio needed the win, and he did get the win. I think that he's your monster this tournament, and they're booking him really well. And I think that when it comes to him versus Ospreay again, because did him and Ospreay go to a time limit as well, or was it just Claudio Okada?
Ospreay wasn't in the C2 last year, was he?
No. I was talking about just Claudio versus Ospreay has happened already, right?
Oh, really?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all.
Could have on TV. I don't know. But anyway, they're building up Claudio well. I thought both men looked strong here. It's just a good big power match. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with you. You are right that match did happen, but Ospreay won. That was in April. So yeah, no draw for Claudio and Ospreay. This match was good. Again, I actually thought the finish here bothered me more because it was such a straight up match beforehand. And then it's like, oh, now we have to go with the referee turned his way, then the low blow to set up the finish with the neutralizer. But otherwise, just a meat and potatoes match, in my opinion. There weren't a ton of epic spots or anything like that. I liked when they went back and forth with the Death Valley drivers and stuff. Both men are kind of power, hard-hitting guys. I think that it shows that King is a very effective babyface, which I don't know if everybody would have predicted.
There's a lot of guys that you realize how over they are when you get into the
And I think this crowd really helped it. If this match had happened the week prior, I don't think we would have thought as highly of it with that, at least. But these guys are great. I agree with you that last year's was a bit better. But I do think that this was a very good match. And both matches, I would say, were recommendable on this show. What would you give the stars for them?
Shelton and Kyle, God, see, like, I would go 4 stars if it wasn't for the finish. So I'll go 3 3/4. Yeah. And then Claudio and Brody, I'd go 3.5.
Those are exactly my ratings as well. 3 3/4 and 3.5. Do you have any other thoughts on the Dynamite that happened? We don't have to go match like segment by segment, but do you have any thoughts on it?
No, so like I did not have enough time to really watch the shows themselves this week. Like
Yeah.
I really wanted to watch all of Collision actually way more than Dynamite, but to catch the women's matches, but
Yeah.
I just did not have time. And anything you wanted to bring up?
They set up a big segment. I thought this was the first time, and they totally undercut it with the Collision segment afterwards. But I thought this was the first time one of the Death Rider segments was actually successful in what it wanted to do. So they had Jay White and Pac, which was a fine match. It wasn't anything that special, to be honest. Another dumb finish, by the way, where Yuta ended up hitting the Busaiku knee on Jay on the outside, threw him into the ring, and then Jay immediately pops up and hits the Blade Runner on Pac to win the match. Like, totally no-sold the finisher. And then after the match, he gave Yuta a Blade Runner as well. So then finally, Moxley runs out. They fight each other. He attacks Jay. Suddenly, like, Shafir's out there too, beating down Jay again. And Moxley, suddenly Hangman comes out. And him and Moxley have a stare down. And suddenly the camera guy jumps Moxley and starts choking him out with the wire. And it turns out that it's Orange Cassidy. Cassidy hip tosses Shafir over the guardrail at one point. And then finally it comes down to it's Jay, Orange, and Hangman in the ring with Moxley. And the crowd's going crazy for this. OC hits the Orange Punch. Jay hits the Blade Runner, I think. I think he hit the Blade Runner. But they hit their moves. It ended with they drag him up. Hangman hits the buckshot lariat, and the crowd chants AEW at him. I thought it was like it's good that they've kind of gotten behind. I think the real reason is I think these three are represented as stars, and particularly Hangman, I thought added an energy that was not there when OC and Jay were kind of the main guys. I think they really rallied behind him, which is good, but also bad because he's the heel of all of this, and he was the one that the crowd really rallied behind fighting Moxley.
Hell yeah to Hangman. Honestly, so I didn't see that, and when you were talking so casually, you're like, yeah, Marina comes out, Yuta hits the Busaiku knee, the cameraman starts choking out Moxley, and I was like, wait, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then you're like, the cameraman's Orange Cassidy, and I was like, oh, okay, but for a second, I was like, what? Like, is this like planned? Like, is this
yeah, it was a shoot. Like,
yeah,
the cameraman.
Yeah. Well, what I pictured was like the camera is watching Moxley, like the cameraman's holding it, and then all of a sudden the camera just goes in front of Mox and he's just choking him with the fucking camera. And I was like, what's happening in this company?
I love it. That's the angle we need. Even the cameramen are fighting against the Death Riders now. The ring crew, the commentators. We need Shivani to throw a right hand at Moxley or something. But the crowd was into it. Like, it was the first time I felt like it accomplished what they actually wanted it to. So that was nice. Mercedes had multiple talking segments, which was not nearly as successful, but they're setting up Mercedes and Anna Jay on there. The Hook had a segment. It sucked. Like Christian and everybody beat him down. Just total waste of time. Oh, even in that Death Rider segment, at the end of it, Christian like walked out from backstage and he had his contract like, hey, I still got this. He didn't try to tease calling it cashing in or whatever, but they did want to remind you, like, hey, I've got this contract. Swerve squashed Max Caster, and it was pretty fun. And then gave him a stomp after the match as well, just for the hell of it. So always fun for that. So this week they also had matches for the C2 on Rampage here. So this leads us to a rare Rampage situation. So, started off with Okada and Mark Briscoe. What'd you think?
I liked this match a lot. Mark Briscoe is so damn good.
Love him.
It really was this was a great match. I loved the exchange of elbow drops, like the Froggy Bow and then the Macho Man elbow drop. I thought that Mark's counters out of the Rainmaker were all really good as well, because that's always like a big centerpiece of any Okada match, right? Is like
Yeah.
how do they get out of the Rainmaker, etc. No, I just thought this was a great match. I thought this was one of the better Okada matches I've seen in AEW. And it made total sense to have him go over Briscoe. I think that he needed a really good tournament showing, and he got one here.
Yeah, totally agree. I thought they did a great job. And I like that they continue to really get behind the J Driller as a big move. Okada sold that, like, as soon as he went for that, he was really scared of it and backed out. And I felt like Okada got elevated to another level of care in this match. And maybe it was the crowd, maybe it was Mark, but it felt like he was really putting more effort into this match going in there. And I was really disappointed that Mark lost, actually. But they kind of rectified it on the next night. But as a match, this was really good. I would say one of the better, like you said, this was one of the better Okada matches in AEW for me.
Yeah,
For
like
sure.
when I think of what a really good tournament match is, just like a match where you watch and you're like, yeah, this is a fucking wrestling tournament. Like this is one of those matches. Because it's like this doesn't have any sort of massive implications, right? Like this is Goto versus fucking X on like day 9, right?
Yeah.
But like you're gonna love it because it's just a
Yeah.
really fucking good match.
It was like highly approved. Mark Briscoe is like one of my favorites for sure on this company as a whole, and I think he continues to deliver big. 7.55 rating here as well. So, Danny Garcia at Beast Mordos had a 6.63 here. What did you think of the Beast showing up here?
I like this match. I actually was surprised by how much Daniel Garcia like hung with him in terms of like the power stuff. I really liked the exchanges of the boots, of the shoulder tackles. Just I thought that they worked the match well. Something I noticed with Briscoe and Mortos is like one of the main things that seems to make them like lose is like sort of their they'll take a lot of shots and egg people the fuck on, right? Typically people like Okada and Fletcher are not going to put themselves in is compromising of positions, but because Mortos is such a fucking imposing guy that I was like, I did not expect him to win this match at all. So what I was really looking for in this match is, okay, so how are they going to convey that this guy can actually lose if he's like a fucking minotaur, right? Because that's pretty crazy to be a minotaur. It's like a pretty strong thing. But to me, it just felt like he a lot of the time allowed or gave Garcia openings. He seemed very, and I say this in full seriousness, Dylan, he seemed very concerned with roaring in places where he should have been maybe getting pins or not letting up on Garcia. And so to me, I was happy that while I was watching, I could see why Mortos was going to lose and not just like, oh, Garcia had a finisher on this really fucking strong looking guy, right? Like he has character ticks and traits that are leading to his downfall. I appreciate that. And yeah, I don't know. I thought this was a good match, not great. But something else too is that I thought really came across in this match is how much Garcia has improved and how much he actually feels that he has risen up the stock. Mortos feels a lot more in a Garcia position from last year, right? And I think to see Garcia at that next level was just pretty cool.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. I think Garcia is carrying himself well right now as the champion, and definitely above where Mortos is. Even though I love him as a talent, I do love your note that his roaring is what has cut him down. This roar spamming that he's doing has to be eliminated. I think we have to get Beast Mortos on the right track as an in-ring competitor. Stop the roar
and move more.
And move more. Sure.
There you go.
Put that on a t-shirt. I would say. Although we did talk about that. We have talked about AEW's lack of T-shirt credibility lately. Their merchandise is not that strong. I'd say they need some upgraded T-shirts. I think that could be the first step along the way. I agree with you. Like, this is good, not great. I would say like 3.25 level overall. The main event was Ricochet and Commander. Commander filling in for Juice here. And
Ricochet lucked out here. Could you imagine? This was such a better for showing for him than it would have been with Juice. No disrespect to Juice, but like this match was like, I felt like when it started, I was like, oh, this was basically made for Ricochet's rehabilitation.
Yeah, like, it really is.
This was the best match that he could have had at this current moment. Not saying like this is a terrific match or anything. I thought it was a very good match. I thought that, you know, when you talk about flippy stuff, like I think a Commander in there with Ricochet is a lot more sound than a Sammy Guevara or someone else. Commander's first match of the tournament, I think that the story they're telling with him of how he agreed to fight only 4 matches instead of 5 because, you know, he thinks he can still pull it off, right? Like, I thought that kind of self-belief, self-confidence, or not self-confidence so much as just like belief in the self, right?
Self-delusion, perhaps, considering his place on the card.
Yeah, but I liked it. It added a little ripple. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I don't know. I thought this was just a really good Ricochet match, like overall. I thought that he definitely needed the win. You know, does a win over Commander mean a lot? Not necessarily, but do points in the C2 mean something? Definitely.
Absolutely. I agree with all of that. I think Commander's a great replacement to take falls and make other people look good. That's kind of been his role ever since he's been in AEW. Is like perfect guy to throw in when we want someone else to look good. Because he always does that while also does cool stuff to keep all of his matches exciting as well, which he did here as well. Just a very good indie style match. You know, 12.5 minutes, lots of cool stuff done. Ricochet gets to look good. I also think it was cool to see Ricochet in a spot where he was the bigger guy. You know, had a little bit of a heelish edge here. You know, he's even bringing back the People's Moonsault now, I've noticed. So having a little bit of an edge. Even off screen, he's been doing these interviews where he's been talking some crazy stuff, kind of. He was saying how, like, without Ricochet, there is no AEW. And he said that pro wrestling is anime when you really think about it on there. And so he's having these comments, which a lot of people are like taking some, or they're not taking issue with it. They're just questioning what he's talking about. I
totally agree with the anime thing, though, only because I feel like outside of daily television soap opera, like anime and pro wrestling are really like the two art forms where it's like you can get like a 10-year fucking story with the most insane character development that really never ends, right? Like something like a Dragon Ball. It's very pro wrestling in that sense. But AEW existing without him,
is it
that's
possible?
hella funny. It's hella funny.
I love the self-confidence. You know, like we can't praise Commander and not praise Ricochet for this as well on there. So very cool. Bringing back the People's Moonsault, as I said, maybe more of a heelish edge. I'm a fan of that. Then we finally got to Collision. Darby, a bit more Commander, taking on Darby Allin. What'd you think of this go around for Commander?
Dude, I liked this match a lot as well. It was just two smaller guys throwing their bodies at themselves in any way that they could. Super, super physical. I thought both guys looked great here. Again, like Commander's position is not about picking up wins. It's about raising his stock so that next year he can hopefully come back and pick up some wins, right? He's kind of passing through the fire right now. But if I'm not mistaken, these matches that were like back to back with Rampage and Collision, were those filmed on the same night?
No, that Collision was at a different building.
Okay. Yeah. So, because I didn't know, so Rampage was filmed the same night as Dynamite.
Right.
Okay, cool. Good to know. Just because I didn't know if Commander did the Ricochet and the Darby matches in the same night, but in my head I thought he did, and I was just very impressed. So
It was still impressive. I actually like that they made this match feel a little bit different than the Ricochet match. I think Darby is a lot better at adding, like, he's another small, like, crazy guy, but he adds a sense of violence to his matches that Ricochet doesn't have. Like, yes, he does spectacular things sometimes and daredevil stuff, but everything he does looks like it hurts either his opponent or him, pretty much. Um, I thought the finish was really good too, which was where basically he was looking for his rope walk into the shooting star. Darby got that and got out of the way of that and immediately went to the Last Supper for the win there. Instead of like a devastating win, it was more like a Darby win, pretty much. So yeah, it was good. I like this was a little different than the Ricochet match. There was more a sense of violence about it as well. They did the spot where Commander did a monkey flip on the apron. Looked very good there. He did the flying
anytime
dive.
I see that spot, I think of KZ and Shin Skywalker.
Yeah.
Sorry,
That was a great match.
Like that, shut them out.
Yeah, that was a great match, and we're coming off of the King of Gate final as well recently. They did the thing where he dove into the chair on the outside, the suicide dive into the chair, but Commander moved. Looked crazy, as always. That was good. So after that, we found a bunch of stuff, including another Death Riders segment where they've kidnapped Orange Cassidy, and they're trying to pour the poison down his throat. They put a funnel down his throat, and they're about to poison him, but FTR breaks it up. This was like totally overwrote any good than the Dynamite segment. Why do they need to do this?
Dude, that's fucking insane. I actually, when I was fast forwarding through the show, I stopped and it was just a clip of like Orange Cassidy being held down and they're like holding his mouth open, and I just see Moxley with cleaning solution, and I was like, okay. And I just kept fast forwarding. Yeah, that's an angle. It still feels like, even though the World's End match is going to be Jay White versus Jon Moxley, it really feels like it could be a triple threat or even a fatal four-way.
Yeah.
Because Orange Cassidy feels very much at the forefront of this feud still. Yes, Jay gets beaten down, but nothing quite like this. And Cassidy keeps inserting himself to where, again, like, I would prefer a Cassidy becoming champion over a Darby. That's just my personal taste, right? But like, it's just, I don't know. It's, I just have no fucking clue what's going on with this main title scene. I'll be honest.
I hate it. I saw a comment that was like, the more I see of this storyline, the more it seems like Moxley booked his own 2019 WWE run, where he came out in the gas mask and he was saying, like these, like, did he book this? Because he said before he hated all of this stuff, but he's doing a lot of stupid stuff in this storyline. Mox, stop it right now.
Again, my dog's name is Moxley, and I
don't blame
this. Your dog. I hate this. It's heartbreaking.
No blame is put on your dog.
Man, and like, you really think you went from Swerve to Danielson to this, and like that was two of AEW's better title reigns, and now this, and it's really like, if the Death Riders want to help AEW, they would just leave or move the story forward, because they're starting to hurt AEW by this.
Like I said, the key is to have the cameraman fight Moxley. I think ultimately. So we move on to the tournament. Kyle Fletcher taking on Kazuchika Okada here. I'm kind of surprised that Okada is getting all of these non-Dynamite matches.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was gonna bring up the same thing as well. Like, you're positioning him, but you're also not getting a lot of eyes on him.
I mean, I think that they wanted to make this a big moment. And it's funny because I made this exact point last week when we were talking about the week one about, we were talking about the Okada draw with Garcia. And I said a win over Ospreay would mean so much more than over Okada. And I feel like after watching this, his win over Ospreay meant so much more than it did over Okada here. The main thing I saw people talking about was how funny it was that Okada wouldn't put over any of the New Japan young guys, but they put over Fletcher here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is very amusing, to say the least. Okay, so this match was good, but once again, we saw the ref gets back to the corner. He has to cover his head and duck, and then it leads to a low blow. We've seen this finish 3 times this week. Can we not get a little creative? And like, if you're going to do heel nonsense, do we have to do the same spot over and over? I don't
lazy.
know. What do you think of the match?
I thought it was a good match up until the finish, and the finish really upset me. It seems that Fletcher may take the block, right? I was, after this, I was like, man, maybe Fletcher and Claudio win their blocks, and Ospreay and Okada come in as a semifinalist or whatever.
Yeah. I said that too when we were talking about it. I said I think an Ospreay Fletcher match has more cachet with their fans than Ospreay and Okada.
I think that if you're going to have Fletcher lose during this tournament, this was the match to have him lose. And when I look at Okada and Fletcher, I think, you probably invested a lot more into this guy financially and personally than you have this other guy. Yeah. And it feels like if you're going to tell me which one of these dudes has the multi-million-dollar contract, it's Kyle Fletcher, not Okada. And I just didn't like this. I think that when Fletcher, because right now Fletcher has been beating heels with heel tactics, right?
Yeah.
And so something like Shelton getting the ropes, whatever, right? But for Okada to get kicked in the dick, these are things that Okada does to other people, and it just kind of, I don't know, didn't make him look great at all, I thought.
I thought that the first part of this match was really boring, actually. I thought they really stalled again. But the thing is, Okada is not nearly as good as a babyface as Shelton was in this match. And in fact, there was a spot where Fletcher turned him into the corner. He started to fire up with chops and stuff, and the crowd was starting to rally behind Fletcher. And they chanted one more time. And so what did he do? He faked a chop, but then hit an eye rake on Okada. So, Fletcher dedicated to the heel lifestyle clearly here. But it just shows you how weak Okada is, that even, and not weak in terms of their booking, but weak in terms of the fans' investment in him. They don't care that much about him. And like I said, if you're somebody who maybe was not somebody who was super big in Okada's New Japan run, if you're just an AEW viewer, you only know him as the guy who calls everybody a bitch. You don't know him as the wrestler of the year or whatever. They've given you no reason to care about this man at all. It's kind of a shame where he came from.
I think that if Okada doesn't win the tournament, that it's that is, I don't know. I feel like he needs to win now, honestly.
Yeah, to save him. But I just, at this point, because I'm watching these matches. I like the Mark Briscoe match, but I'm watching him, and you kind of said it. Remember the NXT point you made about Trick? If you were to line up everybody in the AEW roster by their match quality, Okada's pretty far near the back, in my opinion.
he hasn't had the matches at the same quality that he had. I think that Ospreay and Jay White have adjusted their styles a lot better for television than Okada has.
Especially Ospreay. I think Jay had his issues as well. I mean, the match with Pac this week was pretty good. I didn't think it was too special. I think he's got more on the mic and they've invested more in him, but he's another one. He kind of fell into that comedic role last year. And I mean, I think everything they had to hit a hard reset after the MJF match was like so negatively received. I think that's still like the worst main event that they've ever had on a pay-per-view on there. But I mean, they've gotten Jay back to at least where, as a babyface, he feels like he belongs in this main event mix. And I think the fans are accepting him as that. Would they accept Okada like that? They definitely accept Ospreay, but would they accept Okada like that? I don't think so. But like I said, we'll see. I told you at the start, we talked about it. I said this tournament for Ricochet and Okada, like this is it for them. Like it's crunch time. Like because this is going to tell us where these two are at as talents.
Ricochet, it's what's funny is like Okada's been there for a year, if I'm not mistaken, almost like a year now, and Ricochet's like 2 months.
Yeah.
And it's already crunch time for him.
Well, it's just he's been such a flat character. And that's why I think this heel stuff is probably the right way to go with him. Because it gives him a fresh coat of paint. Because he just really doesn't have anything going on otherwise. Hated the finish. I thought the first half of the match was very boring. They did bring it back up a little bit when they just started to wrestle a bit more, and you got to see a little bit of prime Okada. Typical stuff we've seen a bunch of times, to be honest with you. Again, I don't know. I don't know what they see about Okada. I don't know how you get Okada to be worth caring about, like at this point, unless he has a major match, which we have not seen yet.
That's
that
what I'm saying is like
classic. Yeah.
The year needs to end with him getting that 5-star classic at World's End to win the tournament and like really be like, hey, I'm Okada.
I'm still that guy.
Yep.
At the end of the day. Yeah, I agree with that. Overall, that's a good point. Main event: Danny Garcia, Mark Briscoe. Most important statistic: Mark won. I was very happy to see that. Because of what they did last year, I really didn't want him to go like on a losing streak again. I wanted him to get a little bit more respect, and they did that. And because of the good booking of Danny Garcia before this match, they were able to make this work and make this feel even more special for him to beat Garcia, because Garcia, like Fletcher, has been one of the chosen guys that they've pushed a lot on TV recently. And I thought the match itself was really good. It's got a 7.74 rating. I'm surprised by the cage match rating of Fletcher and Okada, 8.15. I didn't think that was a great match at all. I thought that if I were doing star ratings, that would be like a 3-star match, maybe 3.25 to me. I thought the main event was like a 3 3/4 or 4-star type of match for me. I love the stuff when they were going over the top, where they ended up Garcia hit the superplex and then rolled through. Instead of like a Falcon Arrow, he turned it into a pile driver. I thought that was great. They teased a pile driver from the middle rope, but Mark fought out of that. Hit the froggy bow that came in there. And then the finishing part was awesome, because he ended up, instead of going for the J Driller, he hits the mark out, the cutthroat driver here, psycho driver that he hit here. This ruled. I love this match.
Yes, I also loved it when they did the backstage segment. I was like, Mark would be the perfect person to beat Daniel Garcia.
Yeah.
Because it's elevating him from the Ring of Honor world title scene, which feels so weird to say, like, we're elevating him out of that into the TNT picture. New division for Mark. I think that you can run this match back at World's End after the tournament, Garcia needs to lose to people to develop new feuds. And I just thought that, again, this was a really great match. Mark really brought that fire out of Garcia, I thought, and vice versa. And yeah, the finisher was fucking crazy. I haven't
Yeah.
seen him hit that before, actually. So that was very new for me. And I liked that Garcia getting put away for the first time in the tournament took a super finisher, basically.
He hasn't done it in, God, a decade? Over a decade? Like, this is a long ass time ago he used this as his main move. But yeah, it looked awesome. Like I said, yeah, the cutthroat driver, I'm all about it. This is my first 4-star match of the tournament, I think. Overall, this is my favorite match so far.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I would probably say that this Shelton, this
Both of
Shelton,
Shelton's matches.
Kyle,
Yeah,
and
I thought
then
Shelton Mark was great too.
yes, absolutely the opener.
Yeah.
And then, oh man, I would say Ricochet Commander were my 3 of the week.
You take Ricochet Commander over Mark and Okada?
Oh man. No, okay. Mark Okada, Mark Garcia, Ricochet Commander. I'll take Ricochet Commander over Fletcher's Benjamin.
Okay. I think I'd put Fletcher and Shelton back on, but the other two I would put there as well. So the week of Mark Briscoe, like this week in AEW, good stuff. I think I still liked. It's tough because if you were to compare them, it's tough because these are weekly shows. I don't think it's really fair to compare them to like a pay-per-view or whatever premium live event. But I did like the women's Iron Survivor a lot. Like that was a legit great match to me. But in terms of the weekly, yeah, this was up there for me. So yeah, I would take Mark and Danny. That would be my favorite match of the tournament so far. Like I said, so good stuff there. I think there's still. We haven't seen like this epic match or anything, but I don't think they're really designed to be that. They're just good matches to continue the TV show in a good way. You know, the TV shows, to be honest with you, in a good way. And hopefully they'll build to kind of what you were saying about Okada. If he could get into the finals and have this epic match, that kind of justifies the tournament because you've re-elevated a guy to where you want him to be. Or it could be an Ospreay and Fletcher situation, as I kind of predicted last week on here. So you have options. You're elevating people like Danny and Fletcher. I think they're doing a great job of that. I think Shelton has been a great player in the tournament so far, and Mark Briscoe is so consistent. While also giving somebody like a Ricochet maybe a fresh coat of paint that you could look at as well. And I think they need it with a lot of stuff going on right now. They did one more Mariah May and Mina Shirakawa segment. They had Mina and Emi Sakura on this show. Worth a watch for sure there. And I think that they're doing good stuff with because like Mariah's somebody I've been kind of critical of her run, but I think they're getting things in a good spot here with this Mina stuff, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. So in general, we got the Saturday night's main event. We got more C2 action. You're going on a death match Arizona tour right now. Going in there. I wouldn't say a world tour, but it's your world tour going on. So lots of stuff happening this week upcoming.
Yeah, no, I'm thrilled and excited to chat it up again next week.
Absolutely. So as always, we appreciate all the listeners. Nello brought it up to me off the air too. Shout out to everybody who had us on your Spotify rap this year. Your top listened to stuff. Us being in the top 5, that's badass.
Yeah, shout out Mike and Raleigh. Thank you.
Love you guys out there. Love everybody who checks us out on there. What was your top song or artist on Spotify rap?
Oh, Foundation, straight edge hardcore band. I love them. Yeah, just ass beaters.
love it.
Like what about you?
For me, there was never any doubt. This is like 3 years in a row. Shingeki, which is like a Japanese metal / rap / J-pop band.
Right.
Yeah, they're like super unique sound. They like their songs are almost like 2 or 3 songs in one, almost how they do them. Yeah, so they're great. They were my top artist, and my top song was CZG on there. So great song from them, great music, great fans who listen to Wrestle Update. Check out Nella's game, still on Steam. Put the link on all the Cage Match shows and all the updates and all that stuff. So check us out on social media, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on Blue Sky. I've been really sick this week, so I've been pretty inactive, to be honest. But I'm still here to talk if you would like to do so. We really love all you guys, and hopefully we keep these moving in a good spot, because it's been a really successful return for us since this season 2, as I call it, for Wrestle Update, since we came back. But we need you guys for that. Keep the word up. Keep the happiness up. I hope everybody's having a good time. Good year heading into the holiday season. Hopefully you guys are all safe, happy, and having fun with Wrestle Updates. So until next time, you know I love you. Thank you so much. And this has been your Wrestle Update.